Awesome. Welcome to Aurelia's Virtual Book Club. We have Ashley Capes back again, just over a year later, and we're reading The Fairy Wren this month. And there's a giveaway for it, which goes until Thursday the 6th. And the link is on the Google Plus event page, and I will put it in the show notes when I put this up on iTunes as well. So go enter for a signed copy. Yay. Okay. Welcome. Welcome, Ashley.
Hi.
So the Fairy Wren. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks for having me again. Yeah, over a year later, that's pretty cool. So, the Fairy Wren is a magic realism contemporary fantasy set in Australia, unsurprisingly, because I'm reasonably familiar with the setting. It makes it easier. And it's basically about a guy who's pushed and pushed and pushed, and what happens when he deals with all the stresses that I guess I run him through the ringer there. He does his best to hold his life together, and that sort of struggle, appeals to me as a writer. His bookstore's in trouble, which is the kind of maybe becoming a classic theme, or perhaps a familiar theme. Bookstores and trouble. Maybe classics too much.
Yeah. I guess I don't even know. Like, did the idea for this come from just like living and having just, I guess, an accumulation of ordinary events that ended up in your subconscious somehow organizing into something interesting? Or was there a specific sort of aha moment?
Maybe both. I mean, the Red Group collapse that is referenced a little bit in the book is a real thing. There was a really large book chain here in Australia, and due to various mismanagement issues, it collapsed, and it sort of killed a lot of bookstores in the country. And that was, there was a bit of a spark there. It was at the time there was a lot of panic, I guess, and attributed to ebooks. Ebooks were the thing that were killing these bookstores, but it was mismanagement, I guess, at a big business level. So there was that sort of that was there. That was starting. And I volunteered in bookstores a few times over the years, and I've worked in retail before, and so the customer service interactions I tried to just draw on my own. That was music retail, so different, but so that was definitely a real trigger. The fairy wren itself, so the bird, the superb blue fairy wren, that's a real bird in Australia in sort of eastern.
Is it actually called fairy wren, or is it called something else?
No, it is. It's I think it's the superb blue fairy wren or eastern.
That's so cool. There's actually like a real thing named that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a great great bird, and seeing that around, and the blue is so striking of its feathers.
It's always fun to like discover new creatures. I was in Austin last week, and they have these blackbirds that are like bigger than a blackbird would be, but they're smaller than a raven or a crow, and they make the most racketous, like screeching noise. And I wish I knew what they were called, because I would totally use them as like a villain's, because they were just so perfect.
That's the good thing about travel, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you get to come across these things, and yeah, I think I think those yeah, those moments you wish, like, you want your phone or something to snap a little recording. Hey.
Yeah. Um, so so did you write this before or after when you really started getting into more fantasy stuff?
Um, I guess um, I guess after there was, I know I started with poetry, and that's where I started publishing, and that was, '02 or whatever, whenever it kicked off. Um, but I was also always writing your sort of bigger fantasy novels in that epic or, sword and sorcery style. I was always doing that from 17 years of old, whatever. Um, but of course, they were all no good. That took a while, for me to get used to that sort of,
Yeah.
those sort of plots and that sort of length of narrative, and so they were always happening in the background. And I think, um, I wrote even a few trilogies before I hit my stride and finished them. And I'm pretty sure the Fairy Wren, the first draft of the Fairy Wren would have been 2011, and something like the first draft of City of Masks would have been, I think, 2013. So I'd actually finished the Fairy Wren um, I published it, and City of Masks, which was written after, came out first. So when
Okay.
folks, when we reference City of Masks, I always think of it as the first book, but Fairy Wren predates it by a couple of years.
That's really interesting. So do you think that because the Fairy Wren was more like contemporary fantasy, that it sort of helped bridge your writing from poetry to the more epic fantasy style stuff?
Yeah, maybe because there's more. Yeah, the contemporary, I guess, it just that style allows for that bridge to be much smoother. I mean, it's not to say you can't have, a songwriter or a minstrel or someone who, a poet in an epic fantasy,
Right.
um, who who's the character who naturally looks and thinks and sees the world um, in that sort of way, and so you can sort of sneak in much more poetry, I guess, in that sense. But yeah, I didn't consciously do that in City of Masks, whereas someone like the main character of the Fairy Wren, Paul, who's supposed to be fairly literate and interested in writing and books and reading and language, um, it was more natural for me to use poetic aspects in the Fairy Wren because of that contemporary setting. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I hope it's good. I hope that works.
I read the sample that you can download on Amazon, like, I don't
Oh,
know,
yeah, yeah.
a year ago or something. And
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, I want this for my book club.
Okay, good.
Get it scheduled. So I'm definitely I've had the anticipation building for a while.
Good, good. That's, that should carry you through that long first chapter. It's a pretty long first chapter, apparently. Um,
I never paid attention to that. Is that a thing people care about?
yeah, apparently I've noticed that if reviews are saying, something about the beginning of City of Masks, and if they're saying something about the beginning of the Fairy Wren, they will say Fairy Wren has a slow start, but they never say that about City of Masks. So I don't know whether that's just the length of chapter, because City of Masks has a short first chapter.
I wonder if people are starting with City of Masks because you released it first, and you're getting a lot of fantasy fans.
Yeah.
Go and look at the Fairy Wren and see the fairy in the title, and assume that it's the same kind of an epic fantasy. Because to me, a contemporary fiction, regardless of how much fantasy it has in it, is almost more literary and more conceptual.
Yeah, there'd be a capacity naturally for that. Yeah, different pace. Hey,
So I feel like it would appeal to a different kind of reader, and that may be why you're.
definitely.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I've had reviews sort of. I think I've had reviewers expect it to be urban fantasy, and it's very much not, because
Yeah,
that sort of suggests a different subset. So, yeah, just maybe there's some expectations that are um, not being met, and that's normal.
yeah,
Like people always bring different expectations about a genre or a novel to the reading process. That's good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's your favorite quirk about the main character?
Ooh. Oh, I've had people read it and say he's a bit like me, which um, might be unsurprising in some ways and is um, surprising in others. Paul has a shorter fuse than I do. So, yeah, I don't know whether that means readers are saying that actually have a lot of repressed anger, or whether they're just saying that they're just the sorts of things he thinks about reflects some of the things I'm interested in. I think that's what it is. But one of his quirks is, and this is something someone.
Line up perfectly. I don't know. The story from what you've described so far sounds a little bit like it's almost imagined version of where you were when you came up with the story.
Yeah,
Like an alternate universe version. Whereas
there could be a bit of that.
I think when you're writing, or at least when I'm writing something that's more fantasy, my opinions and beliefs and ideas sort of get distributed across all of the characters.
Yeah.
Or like I'll have two characters believe different things because I'm not sure which one I agree with yet, and I want them to like argue about it so I can figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, and that multiple cast in a bigger novel will give you that easy way to spread it across, wouldn't it? But if the Fairy Wren just following Paul, just following one character, I guess closely, it'll naturally reflect more of that makes sense, absolutely. Um, if I do have a quirk that comes to mind for Paul that I don't necessarily remember, and someone said, look, it was strange that he breaks the law in one aspect, but then he turns around and pays for a pizza that he never collected. They rang the doorbell and dropped it off, and he didn't answer. But then the next day he goes and pays for that pizza. So they said, why does he, break the law in this instance, but then turn around and, pay for his pizza the next day?
Everyone ever, right? There's always a time where you're supposed to pay the meter at the parking spot and you like don't have any change. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess he pays a bit of attention to small niceties or small things.
Cool. So, man, I forgot my question. It was a really awesome one too. It will come back to me eventually.
Yeah.
So, this is what it is. Did you plant any, like, Easter eggs in this?
To some extent, yes, but
To make us look for them, or are you going to give them away?
um, some weren't very weren't quite as. I had one that I cut out of a different book, and it was something like "As You Wish." So that so if a character actually said, I thought I have to cut this. I have to actually cut that phrase out because there'll be too many readers who'll just see what I'm doing there. So there might be references to writers, books, jazz records, or other bits and pieces that will sort of be flagged, but it won't necessarily be hidden. It's more just a reference, I guess. So it's not quite Easter egg, which is a shame because
there's no like, random moment where he's unboxing the new shipment of books and the City of Masks happens to be one of them.
No, the closest I got to was just, you know, having him reference magician in the first page. I think he refiles or dusts Ray Feist's Magician, which is one of my favourite books, and yeah, missed opportunity.
It's okay. It requires a lot of like sneaky thinking.
I know, yeah. It makes it fun though, isn't it?
It does. So what sort of influences had the greatest impact on this particular story?
Definitely, definitely Murakami, in terms of his habit, I guess, of having a missing partner or an absent wife that the main character then has to search for. He uses that trope, I guess, or plot device. He uses that a lot, and for some reason, I'm not tired of it yet. And that definitely influenced me because in the Fairy Wren, Paul, he's not been in contact with his ex-wife. They're separated. His ex for some time, and when he gets that phone call at the start of the book, and he thinks it's Rachel asking for help, and he tries to find her to see what's going on, and can't. That sort of kicks off this search, and so that's definitely sort of, you know, direct influence from Murakami, absolutely.
Yeah. I really, really liked how well you captured the feeling of watching one of his works in A Whisper of Leaves.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah, I was like, this is like watching Spirited Away, except in the book, unlike the characters and the plot happen to be different.
Oh, yeah, the end too of that one, I thought, geez, when I was writing, I thought, I wonder if, is there too much, is there too much in this one? And, yeah, is there too much Miyazaki in this one, or is this, is this a problem? Not a problem?
Not a problem.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but I also don't know anybody who doesn't like his work, so I don't know, maybe I'm biased.
Yeah, surely, if there's someone who doesn't enjoy it, that's just baffling. Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
people like don't watch much anime at all ever like this stuff.
If they didn't, you'd think. I mean, he's like a gateway drug into anime, isn't he? Because if you don't know it or don't like the style or genre, and you try a Ghibli work, you're probably going to become, if not a fan of the whole genre, certainly a fan of him. I mean, I think I saw Spirited Away first, probably like most folks.
How J.K. Rowling Harry Potter is a gateway into a lot of people don't like fantasy like Harry Potter.
That makes sense. I mean, I still haven't read the books, and I've seen one film, and it was pretty good. But I thought I need to stop watching these films because I've never read the books. So I stopped watching the films. So it's been awfully difficult to avoid spoilers.
The first two Harry Potter movies, it starts getting better around movie 3. The first two are really confusing if you haven't read the book because I don't know if they did this on purpose or not, but like there are little pieces that sort of explain why things happen the way they do that you just don't get in the movie.
Yeah, they've left them out. They've had to cut,
So like they cut things, but they cut things without
putting something else in to help,
and needed some form of connection.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I've heard that about yeah, about Harry Potter being, that sort of, I started with Harry Potter and then I moved on to this and this and this.
Yeah.
And yeah, that, I
Almost
guess,
made fantasy a socially acceptable genre to read.
yeah, hasn't it really sort of just shattered that sort of, well, maybe not shattered, but it's really changed things publicly, hasn't it? I think, do you think it's because people change um, the age? The age of people who are having public conversations has changed. So when they were kids, when the first book came out, now
Yeah.
they're adults and they've grown up with Harry. So that changes everything. The films are so big.
When the books came out here in the US, I was exactly the same age as him.
Yeah, okay. Perfect.
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, but now lots of Harry readers are going to be old enough to be having public conversations, and just there's no sort of, why do I need to be ashamed of what is for me kind of a childhood classic sort of thing. It's just it's that big and that popular, yeah. So JK's done a lot of work for other writers, really.
Certainly, she's opened up genre fiction for the majority of people. I don't know. I have this philosophy that sometimes it's easier to learn why people do what they do in the context of genre fiction because there are tropes where you know what to expect and you have it's almost like a highlighted version of a problem that you might come across in a very mild way in real life.
Yeah.
You're not going to have to actually literally fight an evil sorcerer in real life. But you might have a boss who has a lot of similar personality traits to that evil sorcerer.
Yeah.
And if you understand that personality and sort of where they're coming from, it might make it easier for you to not get fired.
Yeah, and I think that the notion of resilience is pretty big in a lot of the genres we write about, and the whole idea of putting a character through a lot of rough stuff and the way they react and get back up is more. I don't know. It's just, if we think of where do you sort of learn how to react to failure or disaster, if not, in real life, then it's got to be through literature and film, doesn't it? And that your favourite characters, the way they bounce back. So, it's very easy to say
about how they think about the problems, how they approach them internally.
Yeah.
What gets to them and why, and it lets you notice things before they get to be really big problems.
Yeah, and then sometimes you can bounce that off real life. Still there?
Yeah.
Yep, okay, good. I dropped out. Yeah, good.
So I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, that's good.
What was your thought process as you were writing about him? Like, were you immersed in his head the whole time, or were you sort of outside his head looking in and wondering what he was thinking about?
I mean, yeah, reasonably immersed, because I think that tends to happen with a lot of first drafts, doesn't it? You get really pulled right into the headspace, and you sort of, I do. I'm just walking around or doing some other task, but I'm still thinking about the book, and someone says something to me and I don't answer because I'm thinking about the book. So that definitely happened in the first draft of the Fairy Wren and every first draft. But yeah, I mean, I was teaching full time. I was studying part-time by distance to get my honours. At the same time, probably doing something else. So like I was doing a lot of things on top of what was regular, and in one way it was a good release and a good escape from thinking about 1,000 things every second, which is what it felt like.
Yeah.
To be just following Paul and just going where he goes. That was kind of relaxing when I look back at it. So when I was writing, I just sort of stuck with him, blocked everything else out, and just sort of spent my time during that first draft doing a lot of trying to follow along with his reaction. So when one thing happened to Paul, I tried not to think too much in that moment about how he'd react and just go with the first instinct of how he should react.
Mm-hmm.
And I changed a few of those things later. That's always going to happen in editing, but it was kind of easy to just let him do his thing. And I know a lot of writers and some readers don't like the idea of the character is in control, and they find that a bit silly, like, that's not the case.
When they do things you don't expect, it's like, it's
it's like they're alive.
Yeah.
So when a character surprises me, I just accept the process and just say, well, this is what's happening, and maybe I'm not totally consciously aware of why the character's doing this and what my role is in pushing them that way, but just tend to go with it and let the characters do what's natural for them. And often by 3/4 of the way through a book, I know that character really well.
Yeah.
And so I can go back to the start and make adjustments that fit how he really is, because I haven't learnt that until the end of the book. I tend not to plan a character. I wouldn't do a 10-page character profile sort of thing at the start. My style is more to just learn about that character as I put them through what I put them through.
Mm-hmm.
And either approach is fine. It's just you got to do what works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember what question I was answering now. I just kept going.
That's okay. I don't remember either. Too busy listening to you.
I'm just pleased that the internet's held and I haven't dropped out 14 times.
Yeah, that's exciting. Always exciting.
It's probably because we had a minor internet upgrade. I cut the video, so surely in the 21st century, my internet can handle some audio transfer.
Well, and hopefully it will continue to improve over time. I don't know.
It will, but I wish faster.
Everyone's internet. I was at the Smarter Artist Summit this past week when I was in Austin. That's why I was in Austin. And Joanna Penn of the Creative Pen, who used to live in Australia, but a long time ago, was talking about like the future of technology and how it related to writing and storytelling and all of that. And she was talking about there's plans, supposedly, Google has plans to bring high-speed wireless internet to like Africa via phone.
Yeah.
So,
and they're thinking that this will be boosting educational outcomes?
In India, they already have smartphones that only cost $5.
Yeah, okay.
So, like, there will be a whole lot of people who don't have easy connection to the internet who will get that connection within the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, which would change.
It'll change everything.
Yeah.
It'll be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I'm like imagining the little like floating thing from Eon Flux.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm imagining the drones that are gonna look like that, like not necessarily identical to that, but like where the drones are like sky sculptures that happen to be transmitting Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Well, that'd be,
That would be
that'd be good. Yeah, with
uh,
that access. Shouldn't that, that should actually change.
completely 100%. So, is there like new technology that he has to figure out because management told him to?
This is for Paul.
Yeah.
He's a little. He's not quite. He's not a luddite, but he's pretty purposefully old school. In that, I felt the more technology I brought in,
Mm-hmm.
the more. And this isn't true of every story, but I felt like it was for this one. The more that would infringe upon the magic, and obviously you can mix magic and science, and that's not a problem. But in this story, I wanted him to sort of keep away. So when he's listing some stuff on eBay, it's not something he relishes, and he kind of deeply resents his mobile phone. Not because it is a smartphone, but because because it's a way for someone else to control his time. So when someone calls him to make him do something, he doesn't like that. I know he doesn't like that, and that reflects me sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he had to work out a little bit in terms of, eBay. That's like a pretty small scene, but yeah, it did. I mean, the other thing too, wanted to keep it like a smaller coastal kind of beach town setting. I didn't want to have anything too. Nothing as cool as those drones in there. Just, yeah, I kept it pretty low.
That makes sense. I just thought I'd try and make it like somehow.
Yeah, but it's should be relevant to writers, because if you can get everyone else onto the internet, that should change the landscape in terms of who has, I guess, access and power in terms of voice, because it's like it's pretty.
Stop having one-sided stories about things if you start having multi-dimensional conversation.
And because when would I naturally get to speak to someone from Kenya?
Yeah.
Or do you know what I mean? Like, when's that naturally going to happen for me? It's kind of not. And to see the wider world sometimes, despite multiculturalism exists and Australia's reasonably diverse, but to get the real breadth of, I guess, the people in the world, it's going to be on the internet for me and for most of us. And yeah, you'd think that'd change the stories getting told.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you get so much more of the world's population online.
It'll change what stories we have access to.
Yeah.
Who has the ability to create those stories and share them with broader audiences?
Yeah. Although, does that mean they have to do it in English?
A lot of people in Africa who suddenly are on Wattpad and they're like putting their historical tribal legends into story form that's written for like the first time ever, simply because now they have access to it and they don't want it to get lost.
Yeah, it's another way to preserve.
Yeah.
I guess the hard thing will be it'll have to be in English for it to be shared for us, which means, I guess, although.
But I think a lot of them, well, I don't know. I know there are a lot of places that use English as a common language.
Yeah, and it's it's one of the big languages for business, isn't it? So, it's gonna be, it's gonna be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's sort of is English, is the language like
More
is it,
things too out there online where you can learn how to read and write and speak other languages. Um, like there's just more access to education.
yeah. So does that make English a tool, I guess, a tool for bringing cultures together, or is it a colonizer? Do you know what I mean? Because to participate in the global market, it's like being forced to use English in some instances.
Right. I think it's both.
Yeah.
And I really think it depends on what you're talking about and whether English has the right word.
Mm.
I have a friend in Mexico City, and she's Mexican and American and French.
Okay.
She has triple citizenship. It's
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
and she went to school in Canada, of course, just to make it complicated. But in a lot of the Romance languages, there are ways of saying "I love you" that make it clear what the relationship is, like whether
Yeah.
it's a friendship or a romance or like a forever kind of romantic love or like a familial love. And it's really hard to put that nuance in English.
Yeah. Because even though we have 1,500 words for certain things, we don't necessarily have the same constructions or connotations, do we? Like,
Right.
well, there's a bit of Italian in the Fairy Wren, um, not tons, and often one of the characters Paul meets, if he's talking to Alessandra and she says something in Italian, it's I don't always translate it because to align you with Paul's point of view, I don't want you to yeah be able to understand exactly what she said, but contextually you'll still understand what they're trying to say to each other and things, and so um, yeah, getting a few people I knew who could speak Italian and write it was absolutely necessary because my knowledge is basic at best, and so um, yeah, that additional facet to the language sort of, I guess, yeah, remind you sort of,
It reminds me a little bit of Tolstoy, actually. Like one of the things I really liked about Anna Karenina was how everyone spoke like 12 different languages, and he just would switch. Like if they were talking in Russian and then they switched to French, he would like actually start writing the dialogue in French,
okay,
and then they
well,
would switch
yeah,
to Italian, and like this was normal for the people he was writing about,
yeah,
and so he wrote it that way, and that's just so cool.
yeah, that's really like really different to what I typically experience. Um, yeah, looking at the Italian research, it reinforces some of the really strange things about the English language. You see those differences. But yeah, I'm always jealous of people who can speak more than one language. Um, it's yeah, it's such a skill. Like it changes your thinking. I often ask people who can speak 3 or 4 languages,
Changes
what
your
language do you think in? And they'll say, oh, well, in this context, I think in this language and here and there. And um, my wife used to say when she was learning Italian, often sometimes she'd dream in Italian.
yeah.
Um, and being a native English speaker, that was to me, for both of us, that was pretty crazy and exciting. Like you're so immersed in the language that you start dreaming in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I look for things in German. I don't know why. I just do.
Yeah.
I'm not even fluent. I don't know,
Intermediate.
but I just, yeah, I look for things. When I can't find my keys, I go looking for them in German.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And there should be a lot of sort of base similarities between German and English, obviously.
Sometimes.
Yeah, not for everything.
Actually, it's funny. Okay, so I took Latin in high school. In elementary school, I had to take German and Spanish both, and so like I learned a lot, but didn't retain most of it because we had
Yeah.
like 2 weeks of one language and then 3 weeks of the next.
Okay.
It would have worked better if we had like 2 days a week of one language and 2 days a week of the other, but they were trying to be nice to the teachers,
Yeah.
and it backfired. And then in college, I took German again, and I took a little bit of Norwegian. And I'm always surprised by how much Italian I can understand, having not looked at any of my Latin stuff since,
Yeah.
I guess, 2007. Um, but I can understand a good enough amount that, like, in a social context, if I speak in English and someone who speaks Italian speaks to me in Italian, we can sort of mostly understand.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that Latin.
It's really weird. It's like I wouldn't expect that, but I think German is more similar to Latin
Yeah. Okay.
than either language really is to English. Like English is a hodgepodge of French and sort of German, but if you look at the linguistics, like the languages changed a lot before they became English.
Yeah.
And German is very similar to like Old German, and so it has all of the grammatical forms that Latin has.
Yeah. Okay.
And some of the rules of sentence structure are a little bit different, but you still have to change the word to reflect the part of speech that it happens to be in that sentence. So a noun will change, like it won't be Ashley, it will be like Ashley then. If
Yeah.
it's an object instead of a noun, instead of the subject. And so there's like 4 different categories that nouns can be. And then there's 3 genders that verbs can be, verbs and nouns.
Yeah, and that really, really throws me when I'm trying to learn another language.
A lot of memorizing rules because the patterns make sense. But,
yeah, once you know them.
But there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of variation that can stumble and trick you. When you're learning.
A lot more freedom when you're writing because you don't have to put the words in order of meaning. You can put the words in order of emphasis.
Okay.
So, like, you could take the object and put it at the beginning of the sentence.
Yeah. Whereas in English, that looks really awkward.
Yeah.
Because we're used to a certain order.
Mm-hmm. Depending on the sentence.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the fun thing about language, isn't it? It's very, it's contextual enough that you can stumble through with some of the right words. Yeah, as long as there's supporting context, which I guess you don't have that luxury of writing necessarily in another language. If you're writing in a language that's not your language, you don't want to make too many mistakes and make it too unnatural. Some of Paul's constructions in the Fairy Wren will be very simplistic because he's not a fluent speaker. So I can get away with, if there's errors in the Italian to some extent, I can say they're Paul's errors, not mine.
Yeah.
And kind of, let that reflect his lack of confidence with the language.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Almost cheating, But like I said, I did get actual Italian speakers to help.
Where you can get away with that. Like I've been struggling with this. I have a book that I'm about to start where there are 2 different languages and they can't communicate with each other because of these language barriers, but I don't really want to actually invent the whole language for this particular story.
Yep.
I did that already for a different story. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it would be huge.
So, like, to the reader, it's all going to be in English. and I don't know how to make it.
Yeah, that could. I mean, I guess if your one character's the point of view character, I guess they can be reflecting on what they think.
That's where I'm getting into the issues because I don't do point of view characters. I do omniscient.
Okay, you could. Yeah, okay. So
Like
does that mean everything?
I don't want to be like I don't know. I just it's an issue that's
Yeah.
fumbling around the back of my mind. How to
Can you
make
go to body language?
it being confusing and awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's gonna come down to.
Two characters perceive the situation like on polar opposite spectrums, right? Because they they think that they're communicating in their like sign language stuff, but they're not. Well, one of them thinks they're communicating, and the other one is like a person thinks it's just a person are being used horribly. Yes,
Yeah, so
it's from the experience.
is there room for comedy? Huh?
What?
That last bit?
Oh, she thinks they're best friends, and he's like a prisoner and is being horribly used.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so there's a power imbalance there that she's not aware of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
no.
she knows that he's officially a prisoner, but she doesn't think she's treating him that way.
Yeah. And because they can't communicate, she can't really explain why she thinks she's not.
Right. Or like,
Yeah.
but like he's also like trying to not like he's under the impression that if he doesn't do what they want, then they'll kill him. So like he'll like nod or whatever
Yeah.
in order to not be executed.
Yeah, hoping he's doing the right thing.
And oh, you agree with me and you understand what I'm talking
Yeah. So it could become comical if it wasn't life and death.
about. Yeah. It's really tragic actually. But yes, it could be comical. And I might make some bits of it be comical to the reader.
Yeah, but just not the whole time. Yeah.
So, what should we look forward to most about reading Fairy Wren?
Okay, so two things. One, I hope that you look for. We should look forward to the way Paul makes mistakes, but continues to try and find a way to do the right thing. Like I hope that becomes something enjoyable by the end. And there's an odd character that I have always felt matches the surreal elements of the story.
Mm-hmm.
That some readers really find really strange, and they can't decide whether this character fits, and that really thrills me. That's really great that readers have gone, whoa, this, I don't even know if this, is this too surreal? And that's really exciting to me. So I can't really say much about that character without giving stuff away. So, but basically you'll know who it is as soon as you get there.
When you intend something to be ambiguous on purpose, and then you get the reaction that you were intending.
Yeah, it's very gratifying. Yeah. Well, yeah. So I can't say who it is, but you'll know when you meet this character, and I'm interested to see whether you think, yeah, it's too surreal or whether it fits.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for making the time to talk with me, despite schedules being all different.
No, thank you. It's good. It's only it was 8 a.m. When we started here.
Okay.
So that worked okay, and it saved you having to start really late.
Yeah.
For time zones to match. So no, it was good. It's fun. This is fun. I like doing this.
Yeah. Well, we'll have the discussion. more than welcome to come back.
Ace, I'll try and line that up too. That'd be good.
Yeah. And I will make sure the giveaway is posted everywhere and that goes down on.
Yeah, me too.
And if anyone has issues with that, go to my website, amkc.com, and find the contact me form and submit something and let me know that it's not working, because that would be
okay. Well, yeah, I'll start spreading the word now, and yeah, hopefully if there's anyone having trouble, they'll let you know soon.
Yeah. Yeah, and I look forward to reading the Fairy Wren and talking about it at the end of the month.
Excellent. Thank you.